What is up, everybody? Welcome back. It is your favorite director's favorite director. And in the famous words of Alison De Laurentiis, did you miss me? Welcome back to the channel. It feels like it has been forever. And you know what? I will say it has. Because today, in honor of everything that is going on in the world right now, especially with the Menendez brothers, after all of the documentaries, after all of the interviews, after all of the TV series, they might be getting early parole or parole in general. So it just feels fitting to go back, watch some trials, watch some interviews, watch a little bit of different things, react to them, commentate on them, just spend some time with them because they seem like they can use time and prayer right now. So I'm sending all of my love to them genuinely, and I hope that whatever comes next is smooth and it's swift and it is much, much, much deserved. With that being said, I feel like I have done so much. I have watched movies. I am currently in the middle of watching Agatha All Along. If you want, go ahead and check those out. Those are also on my channel. Of course, all of the full reactions are over on my Patreon. These will all be over on my Patreon as well. Just because it's a little bit more intimate over there, of course. So yeah. I mean, I'm excited. I haven't seen any interviews with them. I've only ever seen the trials. And I've heard them speak, right? In the Menendez brothers documentary that we watched on Netflix. So I've seen enough or I've heard enough of them, but I haven't got to kind of see, anything after the fact or any interviews or anything like that. And this interview, I believe, takes place in 96. It was my birth year, fun fact. So I'm excited to kind of just spend some time with them. With that being said, of course, as always, if you want more of me, you can follow me on any of my social media. I am the spiritual director. If you want more of me than just on YouTube, go to my Patreon. If you want less of me on my Patreon, come to my YouTube. It's pretty interesting how that works out. But of course, I never forgot. How are you? How are you doing? How is your mental health? I hope that you are finding peace in this crazy, crazy world, especially right now. Without further ado, we are going to jump in. I want to thank Rebecca, who is my brain walking outside of my head, because she compiled all these interviews for me. So thank you, Rebecca. You're the best. And without further ado, if you're new, welcome. If you're not new, you know what that means. Pull up a seat, lay in your bed, grab a snack, and let's watch it.
Their confession was overheard by Oziel's mistress, Judicial Smith.
Juju.
The police. Lyle was arrested in California.
Hi, Leslie.
I ran around and shot my mom.
This is the woman who gave birth to them. Did you cry?
Yes.
Did you bleed?
Yes.
Were you scared?
Very.
Do you know what's the most frustrating thing about this? And I'm saying this in relations to monsters. I've been, as usual, watching a bunch of other reactors and some of my favorites. And Ashley Ippolito, your internet mom Ash, she just recently posted kind of a 30-minute video, kind of talking about monsters, talking about the Menendez brothers just in general. And what she put on, and a lot of it was centered around Ryan Murphy and the things that he was saying after the fact. And it was so disheveling and so I was so baffled at the way that this man talks about the brothers, in the sense of he said he doesn't believe that they should be free, but people should listen to the testimonies and the new evidence, and they probably shouldn't have went away for first-degree murder. So in turn, apparently he does want them to be free. I don't know. But in relation to that, he said that he tried to use a lot of different people's perspectives. He never actually talked to the brothers. He didn't feel the need to talk to the brothers. He knew everything he needed to know. But what I always find interesting is that in shows like this, you see a lot of lies, yes, but also as I'm watching this and I'm remembering this, right? The trial where she said, "Were you scared, or did you cry? Yes. Did you bleed? Yes. Were you scared? Very." Ryan Murphy took that verbatim from the trials. So if you're only going based off of the trials and you're only going based off of a singular article, and somehow you're still making up these lies about incest, you're still making up these lies about, just all of it. It baffles me because it's so hypocritical. It's like, no, I don't need to talk to him, but we're going to use exactly what they said during trial. What did you do that we couldn't do as an audience? We could have did that. I could have wrote it better. Most people could have wrote it better. But like it's just so interesting that he was taking words verbatim, but didn't need to talk to them. Didn't think they should be freed. Interesting.
Though none of them could actually confirm the allegations of sexual abuse.
He didn't stop.
The jurors could not decide between verdicts of murder and manslaughter.
Not the jurors, the men. The men couldn't decide.
Judge Stanley Weisberg again presided, but in a major blow for them, limited the brothers' claims to self-defense. There were far fewer grounds this time for a possible verdict of manslaughter.
I still think that is such bullshit that the same judge was able to reside over both cases, mostly because, one, you've already heard all of the evidence and you've already heard everything. And I understand that this is still jury-based, so as long as you get a different jury, you're fine. But there's such a biasness of objection, of your will and your ability to object to what the defense has to say, or to sustain what the or overrule what the defense has to say, to kind of side with the prosecution without actually siding with the prosecution. And I really, really hope that if this judge is still alive, that his karma is swift, because that is, it was like the biasness that he held throughout the entirety of their case. Even when I was watching back my own video, or when I was editing the Menendez brothers documentary, just watching him as they're testifying, he just looks so bored. And it's like, I don't want somebody who looks bored. I want somebody who's invested in this, because at the end of the day, you have to sentence me. You decide what gets heard in this courtroom. Everybody sits here and thinks that the power lies with the prosecution and the defense, but it's like, at the end of the day, if the prosecution objects or the defense objects, the judge decides whether or not what was being said gets to stay. Shit, he was a shitty judge.
The jury deliberated for less than 4 days. The verdict: Lyle and Eric Menendez, both guilty of first-degree murder.
Wild.
It's important to you to stay together when you get moved to the state prison?
Very important. That is what's gotten us through these 6 years.
Hmm.
We will spend the rest of our life in prison. But if we're not put in the same prison, there's a good probability I will never see him again.
Yeah, I'm emotional. What of it? Mind your business. I think that it's so important to note that, yes, they lied for months, but they never committed another crime. Another crime was not committed. They did not go out and they did not kill anybody. They didn't go rob anybody. They did not do anything after the initial crime was committed. So it's like everybody wants to sit here and say, oh, they need to be separate because look what they were capable of doing. And that was one of the biggest things that they were talking about, like at the end of Monsters, where Leslie was talking to the guard or the DA or whatever. And she said, out of all of my clients, the least scary, the least likely to do anything again is Eric and Lyle. So it's just, that thought, and obviously I know that they're back together now, but even this makes me emotional because it's like the thought of never seeing the one person who you grew up with, the one person who you loved, the one person who protected you and you protected them, not seeing them ever again because of this could only take a toll that most people will never understand, in the sense of most people haven't went through what they've went through. Most people have great relationships with siblings for sure, and I'm sure that most people would be just torn up about losing their sibling in the capacity of never being able to see them again. But to go through what they went through, to bond over what they went through, to adapt, and then to commit something so traumatic and tragic, um, there's just something that gets developed in your relationship with that person that if that is taken away, you almost have nothing left to live for. And that's a scary thought. And also, imagine if they would have been put to death and then all of this happened. Yeah, they could have never, that was never an option, truthfully. Um, and he doesn't minimize it. They know what they did. They know what they did was wrong. They know that they need to be punished for that. Come on. These are not Ted Bundys and Jeff Dahmers. You know what I mean?
I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Yeah, I know.
And you still say you're a normal kid?
He is.
I would think that you would be in such grief that you wouldn't be able to buy Rolexes and invest in businesses. Explain to me. Let me understand. I'm the public.
Well, you're not, Barbara, because you have you have a biasness. Even the way you said you're losing me. If you're grieving so much, you shouldn't be able to go spend money. I've said it numerous times throughout the series, numerous times throughout the Menendez brother, anything that we do with the Menendez brothers. Grief looks different on every single person. Twins grieve differently. Okay? Siblings who are born and raised in the same household grieve differently. Strangers grieve differently. Friends grieve differently. The way that I grieve is very internal. The way that my friends grieve could be external. You just don't know. So to sit here and say there was no remorse and that the reason why, like, they didn't feel bad about the crime was because you guys were spending all of that money, remember? And he said, I mean, it wasn't really a spending spree. We were doing the same thing before and the same thing after. The only difference is that after there was a little bit more money to spend. But it's not that we weren't spending it before, you just didn't notice because it wasn't on your radar. Now we're on your radar. So and also remember this, guys, if somebody commits a crime, if somebody commits a minor infraction, we'll say, even does something to you, guess what? You all of a sudden have tunnel vision. All you can see is that person, and every little thing is irritable. Every little thing you pick up on, the way that they chew, the way that they text on their phone, what pocket they put their phone in, you're upset about. It just tends to happen like that. So with them, it was no different. We honed in, or society, I should say, honed in on every single thing that they did because there was a spotlight on them at that point. It's not that they were doing anything differently. You were just paying attention at this point.
What did you learn about yourself?
I learned I learned what love was about. What love was about because of my grandmother, because of all my relatives who
was really not, emotionally, was not a shocking difference from the life we had lived, because we lived really a very stressful, fearful.
And I want to add to what he's saying, they were in prison. Just not the typical traditional one that we know. They were in prison. Do not be fooled. They lived in prison their entire life. In fact, they lived in a place so much worse than prison. So much worse. And by that I mean in prison, you might come across a couple of people who try to, assert their dominance. And you might even kind of hash that out and take care of that. But then you'll kind of make friends. And as long as you stay to yourself and you stay to your friends and you stay safe, you're good. Every time they walked through their front door, they were not good. They did not stay safe. They had each other, and it still wasn't enough. They were in prison, This one just looks different. That's all that was. They worried. Eric went home every day after school, after tryouts, after practices, after matches. And majority of the time was sexually assaulted by his own father. And that started at 6 when he was in 2nd grade. So it's not the prison that's the best thing that ever happened to them. It's the fact that their parents are no longer here that's the best thing that ever happened to them. And I said it before and I'll say it again, and it's going to be my mantra for them. It is unfortunate that karma had to come through them for their parents to receive it.
Your lawyers to give us a sample of some of your letters. A great many of them seem to deal with from people who have been abused.
He's so precious in his little glasses.
And I've gotten mail after the verdict, people discouraged. And
I didn't hear about girlfriends.
They were there.
I guess what I just have to say to you is, are you gay?
No.
I gotta pause because I feel like I know exactly what he's getting ready to say, and I feel like I've seen the clip somewhere. The unfortunate thing about this situation is that whether he's gay or not, and in this situation he's saying no, a lot of people will not take that at face value. A lot of people will say, well, you said no, but we didn't see any girlfriends, and you're not dating right now, but you're in prison. So it's just like, even when he's sitting here and he's combating all of these rumors and allegations, and he's saying, no, I'm not. And then I think people have a hard time believing that. But then what does Ryan Murphy do, you guys? He makes it a whole fucking plot line in the show. Are you kidding me? Why would you do that to this man who has already said that he's not gay? So it's like, regardless of if you want to sit here and do like the whole rumors thing, and even if that was a snippet in the prosecution's defense of, well, maybe you were just gay and you didn't want anybody to find out. You could have put that in the damn trial. A one-line question in the trial, but you didn't do that. You made it an entire plot line, and then you made it worse by amplifying it. You're not only gay, you like what was happening with your dad, you liked what was happening with your brother, you were having a sexual affair with your brother, like weird shit, which tells me more about Ryan Murphy than it ever did about the Menendez brothers.
And said, if you ever run away, I will kill you, I will find you, and I will kill you.
Suppose you left and you, I don't know what, became a waiter and moved away. You still thought he'd find you?
He would find me.
We're talking about a man that has access to so much fucking money that he genuinely has access to whoever he wants, especially in the 90s. So I fully believe Eric when he says that his dad found him and said, if you ever do this again, I will find you and I will kill you. And also that was Jose's control. It was control. He was losing somebody who he had complete control over, who he was getting sexual gratification from. I doubt that him and Kitty were even having sex anymore by this time. So I just think that when they're saying this, and when it's like, well, say like you become a raider, right? And like you change your name. You would really think he'd find you? He has access to so much money and so much people that it wouldn't be hard to find or to track down. It wouldn't be that hard. This man is powerful. And also, I think that when people are not in the situation of being abused, and you hear it all the time, right, with survivors and victims, is, I tried to leave. I couldn't. And we're also talking about children. We're talking about children trying to figure that out. We have grown adults who are in the worst situations possible, unfathomable. The amount of TikToks that I've seen where I'm just like, Jesus, karma be swift, is unfathomable, okay? But these are adults that are having trouble getting away. These are adults that are having trouble leaving. What the hell was a 12-year-old supposed to do? Who didn't really have access to any money, who was terrified of their dad, who was being sexually abused his whole life so far. Where do you go? Where do you go? Genuinely, where do you go that he's not going to find you? Come on.
When it first was revealed that I had told Lyle about the secret, my dad said to Lyle, You're going to tell everyone, and I'm not going to let that happen.
Take me through your mind, Lyle.
I think I have to just say this one time and mean it. Jose Menendez was such a fucking pussy, bro. He's such a coward. That is such coward. That was such coward behavior. No. Stand 10 toes down, bro, on your decision to do what you did. Don't waver now. Don't get scared now. Don't worry that they're going to tell the truth now. Stand 10 toes down because you weren't worried about it when you were sexually abusing them. Kitty wasn't worried about it when her children were being sexually abused. Stand 10 toes down on that. Now, all of a sudden, because you guys got murdered, we're supposed to feel bad for you? No, Steve. You know what? I blame Ash for this, okay? I blame Ashley because she talked about that one stupid episode in Monsters where it's all about the parents' background, and everybody was telling me it wasn't so that they could have a redemption arc. It was just to kind of explain what was going on. I don't care what the fucking reason was. Nobody cared enough. I didn't care enough. By the time you even told us about that, which is what Ashley says, by the time you even told us about that, we had already seen the extent of the fucking abuse. And then you're just gonna be like, it's okay though, because like they were like sweethearts, and like he came and like he helped her, and like they got married, and like his family did it to him, and like her family did it to her, and like stand 10 toes down on that. That's all I'm saying. All right, I'm over that. Like, you will not hear any sympathy from me anymore from them. All of the sympathy that I had for Jose and Kitty went out the door after I finished the series, okay? After I finished the series, after I finished that one episode where I found out that they were both abusive children, so sorry about that. No kid should ever have to experience that, but I do not feel bad, and there's no sympathy as far as that goes, because if they didn't kill their parents, this wouldn't have stopped. That's the defining factor for me. If their parents had not been killed, this would not have stopped until somebody would have said something. And that would never have happened. That's the cycle of abuse, isn't it? Sorry, guys. Sorry about that.
The other big question. You killed your father, who was molesting you.
Why did you
Why
kill
did
your
you kill your
mom?
mother?
Because she was just as bad.
And she told me that she knew, that she had known all my life what my father was doing.
I don't know how many more of these. I don't know what Rebecca decided for me to watch. I don't know what I'm gonna see after this, but I do know, based off of what a lot of you guys have been telling me, is that Kitty was also abusing Lyle, if I'm not mistaken. And please, if you take anything away from this, remember this. Somebody who is not sexually abusing you, but knows about your sexual abuse and isn't saying anything, is just as guilty as the person who is doing it, if not worse, because you're not getting any sexual gratification out of it. The person who is abusing you is getting sexual gratification, they're gaining power and all of that stuff. The person who knows about it and is not doing anything is not gaining any sexual gratification, they're not gaining any power. All they're gaining is my absolute bag of disrespect, because you are just such a coward. Kitty was a coward. Nothing will ever convince me that. So then when I watched that stupid ass documentary footage of the stupid ass prosecutor, where she was like, this poor woman what? This poor woman knew about what her husband was doing. This poor woman absolutely nothing. I don't give a fuck if you're an alcoholic. I don't care. That doesn't mean anything to me. You know what you did. Get out of here. So no, of course you wouldn't separate your mom and your dad. They're both doing it. They're both just as plausibly guilty.
So it's your fault.
That's completely my fault.
He was suicidal at the time, and it was just a last thing to reach out.
For Eric to be taking the responsibility, to be saying, this is my fault, I shouldn't have told. If I could go back, I wouldn't tell. I would deal with it by myself. And obviously in those moments when he's saying that, like, if he doesn't tell somebody and patricide doesn't happen, the only other plausible explanation for what Eric would have done was take his own life. And it's unfortunate because I think that if Eric would have taken his own life, Jose would have covered it up. And he would have covered it up in a way of the way that people like Jose do, who have access to money and people. And poor Lyle would have been riddled with that guilt of, why did he feel like he couldn't come to me? Why didn't he tell me? Was this happening this whole time? And who knows? Who knows? We still might have the same play of events, except Lyle was the one who killed his parents. You know what I mean? So I just think that for Eric to take all of that fault and guilt, it just tells you who he was and who he is as a person, where he's saying, if I can go back, I would handle this by myself. And he'd probably take his life, which is what Lyle is saying. He was suicidal in that moment. It was a last-ditch effort, which is what we're told to do. That's the worst part of this whole situation, is we're literally taught that if you ever get that low, you can come and talk to me. So for everybody out there, if you ever feel that low, you can come and talk to me. Find me. Because that is the right thing to do. That is the okay thing to do. There's no fault on you if you feel the need to tell somebody what's going on because you are so low.
Be able to have one conversation with them or to change places with them.
You know, that I believe, despite everything that happened, that they really loved us.
So what I want to say, especially towards the end of this, was they both would. Eric has always, I think Eric has always been the more. I don't want to say the more remorseful one because they're both very remorseful, but Eric has been the more outspoken about his remorse, and him saying, I would change places with them if I could. I believe him. And I believe him because living with this, it's unfortunate because this only could have went one of two ways, right? They didn't do it, and Eric at least lived with this for the rest of his life, the abuse from his father and the continued abuse from his father, unless he decided to take his own life. Or they did it, and this is their outcome. What I'll say is this: they are always going to be haunted by this. This is not something that's going to ever go away. They'll probably feel it less and less as time goes on, but they'll always miss their parents because that is what innately we do. We miss the people who raised us, whether they raised us like shit or whether they raised us the best that they ever could. We miss them because that was our first introduction to what love was supposed to be. So if that gets messed up, if that love is somehow altered or tainted, then we don't know any better after the fact. So I think that they'll always be haunted by that. Now, do they deserve to be in prison? I'm going to tell you this, like I said it before. No, they don't. They've done what they needed to do. They spent 30 plus years behind bars. Let them out. Come on. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? At this point, we all know what's going on. So that was one of the bigger things, I think, with the ending there, was communicating or having a last conversation with them. And it's unfortunate because Jose and Kitty were just never going to be able to be those people. And they are evolving and they're growing, which is why they're able to say these things, right? The brothers are evolving and they're growing, which is why they would say, well, we would want a last conversation, we'd probably do it differently. Jose and Kitty, who they were never going to get to that place. So even if you were able to get a last conversation, it wouldn't have went the way you wanted it to, because in that instance, their minds were made up. Who they were as people, who they were deciding to be as people, was made up. Jose was who he was, and Kitty was choosing to stay silent, and that's who she was. And there's nothing that you can do to change their mind at that point. So that's what I have to say about that. I'm glad I watched this interview. I'm glad it gave me a lot more information. Was that the word I was looking for? Probably not. It gave me a kind of like a look behind the curtain. I can kind of see who they are. I'm curious to see if there's anything recent on here that Rebecca put on here. So we'll see. But no, this was, I'm glad I watched this. This was necessary for me to watch. I think that the brothers, yeah, we will see what happens with them. But thanks, guys. I'm so happy that we got to do this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know that a lot of you guys have been wanting me to watch some of these interviews and some of the trial footage. The trial footage I'm a little bit more scared about, just because I was emotional in like the first 5 minutes of this because of them being separated. Like, come on, guys, I'm not okay. So we'll see. We'll see what's next up on the list, but nevertheless, it will be something Menendez brothers related. So hopefully you guys are excited about that. With that being said, of course, you're always getting the cut up version. If you want the full version, head over to my Patreon. You can get the full version of my reaction to the interview, or my commentary to the interview, I should say, with a lot more things. Obviously, Agatha All Along, I will be reacting to that and releasing that immediately, being that comes out today. And we're on like the last 2 episodes of Agatha All Along, so that's kind of crazy. That's kind of sad that I'm already done with that series, but it's fine, I guess, whatever. So we have Agatha All Along to watch, and then I'll be watching some more Menendez Brothers stuff, and then we need to figure out what we're watching after that. So, of course, that'll be up in the air based on whatever is trending, whatever people are watching, whatever is wanting to be watched. With that being said, if you stayed the whole time and you enjoyed it, great. I'm so happy. Thank you. If you stayed the whole time and you hated it, I'm so sorry, but thank you anyways. Follow me on anything that you need to. I don't really have much else to say other than be good to yourself, be kind to yourself, take care of yourself, and above all else, I love you.